In this video, we're reviewing Highland Park the Light and the Dark. And most importantly, we are giving away free bottles of both. So make sure you watch until the end and we'll tell you how to enter. And if this is your first time watching Top Whiskies, make sure you subscribe. We give away free bottles of whiskey every month, and we do whiskey videos every week. You've got everything to win. Alright, I'm going to be honest with you. You all know my feelings about Highland Park Viking branding. I've talked about this before, and I don't want to talk about again that I'm not entirely convinced. Not just because this guy's really scary. I was thinking about this Highland Park Light and Dark, and on the surface, it absolutely feels like a marketing play. It's just another one of the Highland Parks. We're trying to be Vikings and talk about our culture and our heritage in a really marketing kind of way. And I don't like that. I care about what's in the whiskey. That's why I drink whiskey and why I like it. And I wanted to start out this video doing like one of my typical, ooh, Highland Park, terrible little moans. But then I kind of thought about it. And the other thing that I really like about whiskey is the story. And yes, Highland Park Light and Dark sounds like it's a marketing story and not a genuine story that comes from their soul and their character. But what's kind of interesting about it is the distillers and the master blenders were given a brief. They said, we want to create a whiskey that describes what it's like to be in Orkney in the summer and one that describes what it's like to be in Orkney in the winter. Because what do you do with that kind of brief as a master distiller who's trying to make a whiskey? That's actually pretty restrictive, and that means that you have to be creative. Think about Picasso, who only painted in blue during his blue period, or Jackson Pollock, who only painted in dribbles. Like, they created some really interesting things because they had a tight brief. And actually, saying that you need to make a whiskey that tastes like winter, or a whiskey that needs to taste like summer, is pretty constrictive. And actually, I'm really interested to try what these whiskeys are going to taste like, because, well, that takes a lot of skill to make something that confines or complies with what the marketing department was looking for. So there are 28,000 of these bottles, the light and the dark. They are very easy to tell apart. The biggest thing that stands out to me is that, this one is significantly darker than this one.
No duh.
So that makes sense. Alright, here we go. The light. The dark. Actually, they do smell really different. One tip you might want to try. It's really different if you smell the bottom of the glass versus the top of the glass. For me, I pick out a lot more flavors when I smell from the top, and that's because sort of the alcohol, ethanol aromas are heavier, so they sit further back in the glass. Try it at home when you get a whiskey. Sip the back, sip the front, and actually you'll see that you pick out a lot more. From this, I get a lot of like fresh fruit. It's really light, maybe green apples. There's not kind of a floral lightness, but a light fruitiness, whereas the dark is, well, it's a lot darker.
No duh.
It just smells heavier. It smells more like syrup, toffee, burnt sugars, those kinds of really heavy, intense aromas, opposed to the fresh fruit that you get in the light. For my palate, not that this is a competition, they're just two different styles of whiskey. I think I prefer the heavier, darker, toffee smells that you get in the dark opposed to the light. But this is clearly a really interesting whiskey that's been put together. Let's try the light first. Okay. I like this. That was really interesting. Okay, so let's start with the sweetness. We had a lot of sweetness on the nose. That definitely carries through. It's not a lustrous sweetness. It's definitely more like a light icing sugar kind of sweetness, but it's certainly there. I would probably err on the side of saying this is a sweeter whiskey. It's interesting though because it's not the kind of vanilla taste that you typically get from a bourbon cask. That's normally the tasting notes that I pick out from an American bourbon. But this is kind of a, yeah, like an icing sugar that's on top of a pie kind of sweetness. The alcohol to me is surprisingly strong. I wouldn't say it's harsh. It is 52.9% alcohol, which is high, but not cask strength high. It's warming. It's not a beginner whiskey. This is something I might consider adding a bit of water to, because it is pretty strong from an alcohol standpoint. The body to me is the most surprising part. So it's not full-bodied, it's certainly a medium-bodied, but for an American bourbon, that's saying a lot. Most American bourbon whiskeys that I've had or that I tend to like tend to be lighter body. You usually get more nuanced, complex flavors maybe, but not a full-bodied whiskey. This is definitely erring on the side of that full body, which I like from these flavors and this kind of American oak whiskey. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just genuinely surprised that it has that kind of full body. The fact that this is something that is being made to apply to some kind of marketing message that they want to put out. It's made them create something that has Highland Park style and character, but is really different. And I like that. Alright, so quick palate cleansing oat cake. It's quite crumbly. It's surprisingly difficult to eat a whole oat cake in like one go. Oh, that's good. The alcohol in this though is, to me, surprising. This is much more well-rounded, well-integrated, smoother. There is alcohol in this, right?
There is.
There is.
52.9.
52.9. That was the same as the light.
It was.
It does not taste the same as the light. From an alcohol perspective, this is really smooth, whereas the light, I definitely felt that there was alcohol in it. This is completely different. The body on this, interestingly enough, is comparable. I wouldn't say this is a full-bodied whiskey. This is certainly in that medium to full-bodied, but like I said, this is similar to the light, which is from a bourbon cask. And that's really surprising. It just shows how interesting that light whiskey was. But again, this is a really, really nice whiskey. This is even more reminiscent to me of Highland Park 18, where you get dark sherry flavors that develop on the palate and then just crescendo to this amazing finish. Complex, long, lovely, lovely finish. This is a fantastic whiskey. I sound like I've completely disregarded the light, which isn't fair, because I do think the light is also a magnificent whiskey, but this just reminds me how much I love Highland Park 18. It's very similar to that, but it does have, this will sound really cliche and I apologize, but it does have more darkness to it than Highland Park 18. It is a bit richer and maybe a bit more complex, but it's comparable. At nearly 200 pounds, it's 190 retail for both of these. Well, 190 for the light, 190 for the dark. So you're looking at 400 pounds if you're buying both of them. Try Highland Park 18. I think that it gives a really similar experience to this. And it is, well, I think it's my all-time favorite whiskey. And that's probably why I like the dark so much. If you want to try these and you don't want to spend 400 pounds, we've got a way you can do that. Go to DreamWhiskies.com and enter the competition. We're giving away a bottle of the light, a bottle of the dark, and one lucky winner will get to try both, as I've done and really enjoyed. And I do have to say that it is interesting to try something where they've been given this specific brief, to try to make something Light and Dark and how they do that. And you can see that these two whiskeys have a lot in common. The body is almost identical, but everything else about these whiskeys is different. And how cool is that? How amazing is it that two whiskeys can have a similar base, a similar body, but still taste and look completely different? I have to say, well done for Highland Park for making these two whiskeys. I know it's probably driven from the marketing department, but that doesn't mean that these aren't fantastic whiskeys that are genuinely worth experiencing. Definitely go check out DreamWhiskies' website and enter the competition. If you're watching this video after December 2018, then the competition will be over and you won't obviously be able to enter because someone else will have won. But don't worry, every month DreamWhiskies gives away another bottle of fantastic whiskey, so make sure you click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next competition. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you get to enjoy these whiskeys as much as I do.